Well, peace, friends. I'm Tom Arthur, the pastor at Sycamore Creek Church here in Lansing, and I am with my fellow friend and bridge builder, Diane Garden. Diane and I are part of congregations or communities organizing for racial equity. So great to have you here today, Diane.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
So she's going to be helping us build some bridges. We've got some other great guests in the studio today, some artists. Tori Gray is with us. Tori is a performing artist. He's a spoken word artist. He's a producer from Detroit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And he is with a fellow collaborator, Mila Lynn, who this is the second time you've been with us, Mila.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We are so glad to have you back. You two have collaborated in a kind of poetry, spoken word, visual arts thing. I've got the book up here, EP3 collection.
Yes,
tell
sir.
us a little bit about this.
So EP3 was a collaboration that we did shortly after we first met. We produced a new piece of art every single day. So each poem has a visual sibling from that collection, and then we went on to do it again in 2021. So
yeah.
I'll be doing some pieces from those collections today.
So we're gonna hear some of those spoken word pieces and see. We'll take a look at the art that Mila's done with it.
Yep.
Mila, you got behind you one of your probably best known pieces. At least it's the one that I've seen before.
Yeah.
Tell us what you got going on there.
So this is my Trayvon Martin piece that is from the Black is King collection. So he's the King of Hearts, and I specifically chose him as the heart suit because I feel like him and then his partner, which is the Queen of Hearts, is Breonna Taylor. They both needed a little bit more love, and perhaps they'd still be here. So, and those two are very special to me because when Trayvon Martin was murdered, I was the same age. So that was like, I think one of the first times that my eyes were opened, like, oh,
wow.
You know, like, I mean, obviously with stuff that happens on like growing up, you know that that's a possibility, but it was like, wow, you really feel, I guess, connected in not the best way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so this is where we're talking about building emotional bridges of connection today for moments like this or situations like this of deep sorrow and regret. And you brought in not just your Trayvon painting, but you've got some prints of others here in the studio. If you're in the studio, you can take a look at those on the walls. Who else have you painted?
So specifically with this collection, I have done Malcolm X, I've done Kobe Bryant, the Obamas, Kamala Harris, Rosa Parks. All 8 of them? Is that Malcolm X? Breonna Taylor?
Breonna Taylor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all 8 of them.
Yeah. We're going to engage that, continue to engage it, and your artwork here. And we've got a question for you. While Tori comes on up to the microphone, got a question for you if you're watching on Facebook or if you're in the studio. Who's your favorite visual artist? Bonus points if you say Mila this morning. So, Tori, you've got a piece here that it appears in EP3 collection. Mila created a original piece of artwork for it. I think that's Malcolm there. Is that? Am I noticing that? I don't know if we can get a close-up of this. Yeah. Tori, take a minute and set up this piece, Trap, for us, and then perform it.
Okay, so Trap was written from a place of me valuing perspective as one of the most effective tools that I've grown up with. So I feel like a lot of my interpreted success is directly related to that. I thought a lot last year on the concept of like teaching children what to think isn't as effective as teaching children like how to think. So that's really what this piece comes down to is controlling that perspective and understanding that anything happening around you can either happen to you or it can happen for you, and the way you perceive it really determines that. So.
All right, friends. Here's Tori Gray with Trap.
Trap. Last time I checked, this was a system designed to hold you back. But a lot of us don't see it as that. What I've come to understand is that a person can't begin to love themselves without embracing where they currently at. So be it. The system was designed for us to need it while we're here, rather than being here for when we need it. And that's just food for thought, hence the way they scramble into pieces. I'm dedicated to enhancing my perspective, that's why I often jot. From the hood to the burbs, I've seen both sides of the block and got caught in between. And that's a trap for the masses. A lot of people like me will never be free because their identity's clashing. Make peace, because everything's a trap, but that's what'll trap you the least. And I don't think I know everything, I'm just speaking my piece. And if I'm being honest, introspection puts my conscience at ease. A younger me might have seen these and found a reason to seize every moment that's free instead of getting caught in the divisions that they wanted us to see. Your perspective is everything you need it to be, so let it be. Thank you.
So much good in there. It feels like I feel like whenever I hear a spoken word piece for the first time, I want to just rewind the whole thing and hear it again because there's
I'll do it
every
again.
word.
All you got to do is say the word. I'll do it
All
again.
right, well, hey, do it. Let's do it again. Here we go. Here's Tori Gray with Trap.
We doing it again?
Go for it.
All right, let's do it again. With spoken word, it can be a lot to take in. So, trap. Last time I checked, this was a system designed to hold you back. But a lot of us don't see it as that. What I've come to understand is that a person can't begin to love themselves without embracing where they currently at. So be it. The system is designed for us to need it while we're here, rather than being here for when we need it. And that's just food for thought, hence the way they scramble into pieces. I'm dedicated to enhancing my perspective, that's why I often jot. From the hood to the burbs, I've seen both sides of the block and got caught in between. That's a trap for the masses. A lot of people like me will never be free because their identity's clashing. Make peace, because everything's a trap, but that's what'll trap you the least. And I don't think I know everything, I'm just speaking my piece. And if I'm being honest, introspection puts my conscience at ease. A younger me might have seen these and found a reason to seize every moment that's free instead of getting caught in the divisions that they wanted us to see. Your perspective is everything you need it to be, so let it be. Again.
All right.
I don't know, my
you,
favorite line in there that I've got the book open, so I'm also following along, but my favorite line in there is, the system is designed for us to need while we're here, rather than being here for when we need it. That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
I think that's my favorite part too, actually. I'm glad you picked up on that. Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, I got some bonus points this morning with Tori for liking his favorite part. Yeah. Hey, Milo, who's your favorite visual artist besides your own work?
It kind of depends. Like, do I like the artwork or do I like the person and kind of like how they go about it? So one artist that I really just like the way that she approaches her art, her artistry, I guess, is Sophie T. She's actually based in the UK, and when I was over there, I had met her. She's a couple years older than me, but she really, she started off doing like these animal portraits that were really colorful, and it just didn't seem to have like a ton of depth to it, to be quite honest with you. But then as she continued on, she did some abstracts, and then she got into like these paintings of women that it didn't show the face, it was just mostly like, you know, body paintings. But she took that and then would do like catwalks with women where she would paint them, but it was like all different shapes and sizes, and really just having like women embrace themselves and be like a safe place. And I just thought that was really beautiful.
Who was the name of this artist?
Her name's Sophie T.
Sophie
so
T.
Tea like the drink.
Oh, TEA.
Yep.
Sophie T. All right. We're going to have to look her up. Diane, how about you? What's some of your favorite stuff?
Well, I'm going to say my favorite was my son, but he hasn't drawn since high school. So he used to really draw some nice sketches and stuff. And then I guess I'll go back to my mother. She used to design clothes and draw them, but she never published and did any of that, and I wish I would have saved them.
She designed clothing?
She designed clothes, just drawing them.
She's drawing
She just drew them, but she passed on several years ago, but I wish I would have kept those, and I'm going to save my mom.
You're going to have to get a tailor to build one of those sometime.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a mom answer to answer James, your son, first. Yeah.
Can't help it.
I think I'm a photographer in background. I had a photography minor in college, and Jerry Uelsman was my favorite photographer. He was doing this stuff with that looks like Photoshopped, stitching all kinds of photos and pieces together. This is long before Photoshop existed. He's just doing it in the dark room, burning and dodging. Is absolutely amazing, because you look at it now and you're like, how did he do that without a computer? So Jerry Uelsman is definitely my favorite. It's good stuff. Hey, we would love to connect with you today. One way that you can do that is just to like, share, and subscribe what's going on. It's a simple way to get the word out. And if you are in the studio or whether you're online, we would love for you to fill out the connection card. That's a way for us to connect with you. There's a physical connection card here in the studio, but digital one online, sycamorecreekchurch.org/connect, and Gretchen's going to put that in the comments section, so all you have to do is click on that link. If it's your first time to fill that out, we got a free book for you. You'll get through this. Man, it feels, are we in like the 7th or 8th or 15th or 20th surge of COVID? I mean, somebody needs to get through something today and fill out that connection card, and we will send that book. You'll get through this right there to your door. We would love for you to take a selfie. It's really hard to see each other right now. I mean, I look out in the studio, and there's just not as many people as we're used to seeing in here. But we know that you're all out there online. So take a selfie at home and tag it SCCMI. If you're in the studio, take a selfie too. Our selfie of the week is Julia Scott. She was in the studio last week, and she's a local performing artist as well, musician, spoken word artist, and she was just here as a guest with Lexi. So thank you so much, Julia. We're going to be sending you a free gift in the mail. Tori, you got another song for us, and is that the piece that Mila has the artwork for? Is that so? Mila, hold that up to the camera there so folks can see this piece that goes with it, and then set it up for us, Tori.
Yeah. So this piece is the hip hop sibling to the visual art that Mila's holding up right now from our most recent collection, where we produced a new piece of art every single day, a collaboration. So I would make poetry or hip hop, a short audio piece, while she would design a piece, and the whole thing ended up turning into something bigger than I think both of us could have hoped for.
It turned into a book.
Yeah.
820 collection.
Yep. So that was from the first year. This piece that I'm doing right now will be from the most recent year that we did it. This song actually just dropped on streaming services yesterday. So, and
all right.
You just seen the cover art, so you know where to find it. There's a crowd participation part at the end. This was written to be a fun piece. The writing prompt for it was build. And at the time, I was doing a canvassing job where I was going door to door in Detroit, that's where I'm from, asking people about what socioeconomic problems they cared about the most. So when I got the prompt, the first thing that came to my mind was just like talking to these people and building that connection, because I feel like a lot of the problems in our communities are often not represented by the people that actually live in those communities. So. For me, that was just a really important experience, just going door to door and having those conversations with people every day. So with that, build. Yeah. Hey. Can I get a little bit more in the speakers? Yeah. Hey. Lately been caught in that field. Lately I'm just trying to... Wait, lately been caught in that field. Really, I'm just trying to build. Wait, hold up. Lately been caught in that field. Really, I'm just trying to build. Wait, hey. Lately been caught in that field. The people gonna show you what's real. Really, I'm stuck on the fence. Results of the realness concealed. I listen, I'm giving my ear. They see the code. Tell them to pardon my flow. I'm from the part of the city that never let go. Never lose hope. I hit the scene and I made it my home. I come with heat, but adapt to the cold. Don't put me on pedestal. Ain't perfect, I'm sexy though. And I'm built with a heart of gold. I got more than 100 flows. I learn to move fast. I do the dash like OV. More and more people think they know me. Imposter syndrome got me really feeling phony. Or maybe that's the problem. Look, you don't know me. Wait. Heal, grow. So look, heal, grow. This the foundation. Peace, love, heal, grow. I need to hear y'all say it. Let's go.
Heal, grow.
Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow. Peace, love, heal, grow.
Thank you. Yeah. You can't can't go wrong with a little positive energy, man. Thank you for experiencing that with me. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
All right, hey friends, give it up for Tori Gray. Today we're talking about building bridges of empathy, emotional connection with people who are different than we are. And today's message begins with this.
In an era where we are increasingly divided by racial lines, many are hesitant, or they refuse to, or they're fearful of stepping into the gap. We're fearful of saying or doing the wrong thing. At times, the silence, particularly from the church, is deafening. We are desperately in need of a resource that teaches us how to confront our hearts, expose our thoughts, and reevaluate everything that we've ever thought about race. To truly bridge the divide.
Stereotypes.
Indifference.
Oppression.
Apathy.
Disunity.
Hopelessness.
Denial.
I invite you to join us on this journey toward racial reconciliation.
Be courageous. Be a reconciler.
Be honest.
Be the bridge.
I used to live up in Petoskey, and one of my favorite things to do was to go into the Upper Peninsula, to go backpacking and hiking and canoeing and biking. And one of my favorite places to go was Craig Lake State Park. Now, you may have never heard of Craig Lake State Park because it's out in the middle of nowhere. You got to take like a 2 or 3 mile dirt road to get back into this park. But once you get there, the place is amazing. Now, one very early spring sunny day in Petoskey, my friend Kyler and I looked outside and we said, hey, this is a great day to get up to Craig Lake State Park. And we drove up there, and what we found instead of a nice sunny spring day was snow. Deep, wet, heavy snow all over the place. And in the wisdom of my 20-year-old self, I decided, hey, I got a Subaru all-wheel drive station wagon. I can do it. It was one of the hazards of owning a Subaru all-wheel drive car is that you think it'll do more than it can. And so we took off down that dirt road in the deep snow, heavy, wet, packed, and eventually about 2 miles in, my Subaru slid off of the road and into the ditch. Took out our cell phones, no cell phone reception. We are stuck back way out in the middle of nowhere. No way to get in touch with people. We spent hours trying to figure out how to get out of that ditch. Eventually, the only thing that worked was we grabbed stones and rocks and logs and sticks, and we built ourselves a bridge out of the ditch. And we finally made it out. Now, when we got out of the ditch, wiser heads would have turned around and gone back out. But you know what we did? We just kept on driving down that dirt road with the heavy snow packed in until my Subaru wouldn't go any further. We parked, we hiked in further, and then we camped for the night. My name's Tom Arthur. I'm the pastor at Sycamore Creek, and you may wonder about the wisdom of my leadership after a moment like that, but I was in my 20s. We often find ourselves in ruts and ditches in life that we have to build bridges to get out of. You're in a ditch in your family, and somebody's going to have to take the first step to build a bridge to get out of it. You're in a rut in your workplace, and somebody's going to have to be an adult and be a bridge builder to get out of it. In your marriage, somebody's going to have to take a step of forgiveness and confession to build a bridge of humility so your marriage can thrive. There's a ditch in our culture around race. In fact, the word ditch isn't even strong enough. It's like a chasm around the issue of race. And while we disagree about how we got in that ditch or how that chasm got formed and how we're going to get out of it, one thing that we all agree upon is that something isn't working. It's certain that to get out of that ditch, we're going to have to build a bridge. The question of this series is, are you willing to build a bridge, especially when it comes to these issues of race? Now, before we get to the question of building a bridge around race, let's talk about building bridges in the rest of our lives. Here's a question for you to talk about in the comments or turn to the person next to you and chat about. Where have you had to build a bridge in your life? Where have you had to take the first step, whether it's in your family or your workplace or your school, and be a bridge builder? Let's talk about that. Diane, you got an interesting experience building a bridge across a religious difference. Tell us that story.
Well, I was taking a class in D.C. for work, and I was put on a diverse team. And it was diverse in color and religion, and we had one young lady that was a Muslim. And one of the gentlemen there wanted to shake her hand, and she said, I can't shake hands with men.
Yeah.
And he was a white young man, and he was really offended because he felt like, well, that means I'm being friendly. Why won't you shake my hand? And so I had to explain to him that that was just their custom. And then a female just didn't do that, and it had nothing personally to do with him.
Yeah.
And because I love being a peacemaker, it worked out because we had to work together for 3 months. You know, we were going to meet together every month for a week, and we had to be able to get along. And once he understood that, you know, she wasn't offending him, I was glad that we were able to work together as a good team.
Yeah, that's a great story, because the bridges that need to be built are across a lot of different categories, not just race, but religion as well. Yeah. I think you two are kind of bridge builders across like spoken word and visual art.
I have a somewhat of a similar experience to that, actually. So I didn't mention it earlier, but I'm attached to the National Guard. And my first deployment overseas was interesting because obviously there's a lot of cultural barriers that you need to be aware of. And even with the training, it's like sometimes you have to experience it to really understand it. So I had a relationship with one of the nationals that worked on base there. You know, we were cool, we joke around, and then they're a little bit more touchy-feely than we are culturally.
Okay.
So one day I felt like a little bit uncomfortable. I was having a bad day or whatever, and I kind of it got a little tense. And then he looked at me like I thought we was bros, man. And then but through that we built our understanding of each other. Like it's, you know, you have these experiences and you don't take it personally. It's all part of that understanding, and I think that's really what building bridges is about, like building that understanding between two people. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that story, and I think there's a way sometimes that our armed services end up putting all kinds of groups of people together that weren't there, where you have to build bridges to be a team together.
Yeah, that's how I got my taste in music. My mom was in the military as well, and she had, you know, you remember the MP3 players where you upload the music to the MP3. A lot of
I love how you say you remember those MP3 players.
Yeah. For me, it's like
you remember when there weren't MP3 players? I remember the cassette, Walkman.
Just imagine, like, my kids aren't going to know what I'm talking about. Like, what do you mean? You had, like, you couldn't just get the music from the air? No, we had to put it on there. And,
my kids don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but no, like, she had a lot of culturally diverse people that she worked with, and they put music on the MP3 player. You know, she'd bring it back home, and, you know, I would listen to it and hear all different types of music.
Yeah. Actually, you know, you're hitting on a piece here. I think there's a way like that. Engaging art in a different category than you might normally engage is a bridge building exercise. Whether it's listening to your spouse's music that you like, your kids' music that they don't, you like, or you don't necessarily like they like that whole thing.
But that's why I love art so much, because I feel like art is super subjective, but it's not often something that like people aggressively argue over, right? It's not like politics, religion, money. Like if somebody doesn't like an art piece or something, people can disagree, but it's not like, you know, when your favorite team, like people like go so hard
you don't get all offended about it.
We can't be friends if you don't like my music.
Unfriend you.
Hold on. No, I'm just kidding.
That's a great point, Mila. Thanks for bringing that up. Hey, let's get back to the message and see where this bridge building goes. Today, we continue a series called Be the Bridge, based on a book by the same name by Latasha Morrison. And Latasha helps us bring together issues of faith and history and school and workplace and church and puts them all together in conversation with the Bible to help us learn how to be a bridge and to build bridges when it comes to this racial chasm that exists in our culture. What we've been learning in this series is that it's not just a problem that's out there. It's a problem that's in here. One of the key verses that we've looked at through this whole thing has been by Paul, the first missionary of the church and the author of many of the books of the Bible. He wrote a letter to the Corinthians in which he said, "All of these things are from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and who gave us the ministry of reconciliation." God was a bridge builder, and we build bridges too. We've been building bridges with curiosity and humility. We've been building bridges with confession and forgiveness. We're going to look at how to repair bridges in the coming weeks, but today we're looking at how to build bridges of empathy with lament. Two key scriptures throughout this whole series have been from Paul in his letter to Timothy when he says, "For there is one God and one mediator between God and humankind, Jesus Christ." And the second is Jesus' command, "Love each other as I have loved you." Now there's two big ideas through this whole series that we are trying to remember from those scriptures. The first is this: Jesus is the bridge between God and humanity. God's a bridge builder. And the second is that God has given us the ministry of building bridges with each other. Now there's a problem that we want to deal with today, a really specific problem. And the problem is that there is an emotional disconnect between different races' experiences of life. An emotional disconnect. One group, one racial group experiences life this way, another racial group experiences life this way. I remember when I went to Duke University for seminary, and I had one experience of being at Duke, and my fellow black students, fellow black future colleague pastors had a very different experience. It was like we were living in parallel worlds. In the midst of this difference of experiences of life, we who are white often fail to engage with empathy, the emotional experience of people who are different than we are. And when we fail to build those bridges of empathy, we not only don't build a bridge, we make the chasm bigger. So to begin to build a bridge of emotional empathy with people who are different than we are today, with different races, let's start with this question. What exactly is race? I mean, what does the word race really mean? Well, Latasha says in her book, let's consider this foundational truth. God didn't create race. Did he create different ethnic groups? Yes. I think about Paul and his traveling companion Barnabas, who were preaching in the book of Acts, the history of the early church. And they quote Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, who's talking for God when he says this, "I made you a light to the Gentiles, to bring salvation to the farthest corners of the earth." This word Gentiles in the Greek is ethnos, and in Hebrew it's goy. Now you can see in the word ethnos this basic sort of beginning of what our word is today for ethnicity. In the Bible, there are ethnicities, and there are peoples and nations in the Old Testament and the Hebrew Testament. And all of these ethnicities and peoples and nations and groups are included in the salvation of God. If we jump to the book of Revelation, we get a picture, an image, a sort of foretaste of what heaven is going to look like. Hear the author when he says, "I saw a vast crowd, too great to count, from every nation and tribe and people and language, standing in front of the throne and before the Lamb." Salvation doesn't erase our ethnicity. It doesn't erase our cultures. All of those beautiful things, all those varied differences and diversity of culture and people and ethnicities is going to be in heaven with us. Ethnicities are present in the Bible, but this idea of race, well, not so much. So where did race come from? Well, in short, we made it up. One group defines race this way: race is a human-invented classification system. Or maybe you've heard it said, race is a social construct. What does it mean that race is a social construct? I mean, come on, look, my eyes, Tom, they see there's people who are black, there's people who are brown, there's people who are red and yellow and white. I mean, Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world, red and yellow, black and white. They are precious in his sight. What's that going on? Come on, my eyes aren't deceiving me. Well, that's partially true. You see, there are differences in the color of our skin, but the idea of race goes deeper. Race suggests a kind of classification system. Race was a project of the Enlightenment. It was an attempt to categorize all the people of the earth in different, quote, scientific categories. And there was a hierarchy of these categories. At the bottom of the category were people who were black and brown and native, and at the top of the hierarchy were people who were white or lighter or fair-skinned, people who made up a conglomeration of folks from European countries. Now, if you have this sort of scientific classification or hierarchy, then the people at the top are more human than the people at the bottom. And it gives a sort of quasi-scientific justification for treating people at the bottom of the hierarchy as less than human, doing things to them that you wouldn't consider doing to fellow human beings, and in many cases, things you wouldn't even consider doing to animals. There was an attempt to build this classification system on biology, but modern genetics have totally blown this project out of the water. When the human DNA was sequenced and the genetics were understood more fully, we found out that we are 99.9% similar. Race does not provide an accurate representation of human biological variation. And the belief in races as natural aspects of human biology and the structures of inequality that emerge from such beliefs are among the most damaging elements in the human experience, both today and in the past. Now, maybe the idea that race is something that we've made up, maybe the idea that race is a social construct is really challenging to your imagination. I know it has been for mine, and in fact, in some ways, it still is hard for me to wrap my mind around it. But how does this idea sit with you? Well, let's take a moment and talk about that in the comments section or with the person you're sitting next to. Diane, I remember when we first, at least I first encountered this in our core Understanding Racism workshop. My guess is that wasn't the first time you encountered this idea, but it was for me, and it was so hard to see race as a social construct, race as something we made up. But slowly over time, you begin to see it that way. It's like this water that we breathe, that we swim in, or air we breathe as white people in America, and you have to kind of get out of that to be able to see it. How about you? What's your experience with this idea?
It grieves me and is disheartening, because as a Christian, you know, I believe that we're all image bearers of God. So, and then America's fascination with these categories and putting us in boxes.
Yeah.
It really angers me, because my thing is that we should just see each other as who we are, who God created us to be. And then to put us in a hierarchy, to think that you're better than me just because of the color, you know, it's just, I just don't understand. It doesn't make logical sense to me.
Yeah, it's really painful.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know, Mila and Tori, how have you guys engaged this idea of race as a social construct?
Well, it's funny. I guess like my whole existence is a social construct, because since I've been born into this earth, like, it's always, I've had to categorize myself because I'm biracial. So people will be like, what are you? Like, I don't really fit anywhere. And now, you know, being biracial is, I guess, a lot more popular. I don't know. There's a lot more mixed families, but growing up, that wasn't necessarily the case. That's really just happened over the last 20 years. So I remember even when I was younger, we went to like a predominantly white church and like feeling like we just stuck out like a sore thumb. And, you know, and then like your race being basically like, how do you say it? It's like it's in reference to who you're around, right? So like if I'm around a predominantly black group, well, I'm the white person. And if I'm around a predominantly white group, I'm the black person. But, you know, and then people choose whether like you're validated in your experiences that you have based on, again, something that is literally constructed by society.
That's interesting because you're describing something that, you know, I've sort of thought this when it comes to political categories, liberal and conservative. You're in one group and you're the liberal, and you're in another group, you're the conservative. And somebody who lives in a biracial experiences that with race. You're white in one group and you're black in another group. It's a moving target.
I do feel like it is a social construct, though, because at the end of the day, like, whether you're white or black, we are all human. So it's like we're the same, even though we're different. And I actually have a personal story, if you don't mind me telling.
Please tell it. Yeah, no.
I feel like it directly relates to what we're talking about. So, so I come from a family where my grandfather, after he gave birth to my mother, he was divorced and married to a white woman. So half of my family's black and half of my family's white, even though I'm not mixed. So growing up, it's like, is a bit of like a cultural barrier. You know, I see them for the holidays and I've known them all my life, but because of the cultural barrier and, you know, geography, location, we never really got that close up until recently, where I actually spoke about it in a track. And I say it's a spoken word piece where I say, at least I got family, half of them white, but they still family. But they don't know me. Half of them black, but they don't know me. Most of them love me, but can't show me because they too busy fighting for peace of mind. We living through trying times. They killing us by design, but I put it in simple rhymes. But really it takes time because it's so complex. So it's just saying, like, even though we're different, we're still battling the same issues of like trying to find like our voice in a day and age where like so many different voices are projected into us. Like, and a lot of it for me is just having compassion for that. And that was a big moment in my life because me putting that into the music set the intention for actually wanting that part of the family to know who I really was and, you know, not just...
So that was a bridge building exercise to speak out loud your experience with your family.
Yeah.
How'd they respond to that?
I think like we never talked about it directly, but around that time, there was more communication. And since then, we've gotten a lot closer. And, you know, my grandfather actually recently passed away. So when you have something like that where, like, he's like the bridge in between the two families, you have to make a decision, like, is this kind of like, where we part ways or are we going to remain a family? And I think because we put in that work before he passed away, we can have that option of continuing to build that connection. And so we've gotten closer.
That's really beautiful. You're building bridges right inside your family. Yeah, thank you for sharing that story.
Thank you.
Hey, let's get back to the message and keep bridge building. This classification of humans into different categories has left in its wake an unimaginable toll on those who are considered less than human. And this toll continues to crash into the shoreline of the present. But the impact isn't just on people of color, it's also on white people, because we who are considered white have been sold a bill of goods that our way is better, best, superior. We have lost out on the diversity of the kingdom of God that we'll see in heaven. Remember in Revelation? every nation and tribe, people and language. There will be so much ethnic and cultural diversity and the strengths of it in heaven that we better start building a bridge to heaven right now, today. So maybe in the face of this chasm of racism, we should just be colorblind. I mean, that seems like a reasonable response to everything we've been talking about. Let's just ignore people's color of their skin. Let's make everybody the same. Well, this idea of being colorblind may have good intents, but it tends to come along with ignoring the impact of both the history of racism in our culture and its continued impact today. And instead of building bridges, it tends to create a chasm of emotional distance and disconnect. In its place, Latasha Morrison recommends a color brave, a color honoring, a color caring perspective that builds this bridge of emotional empathy between different groups of people. To be a bridge builder, different groups of people are going to have to take time to listen to and learn the histories and the stories of people who are different than us. And those of us who consider ourselves white will especially need to do this, because these stories of race in our history are often left untold among us. To be a bridge builder, we're going to have to take time to listen to and learn about these histories and these stories. Or as Latasha says, to participate in the family of Christ alongside the non-white culture, the majority culture must understand non-white perspectives and the truth of historical narratives. In an attempt to do this myself, I recently stepped way out of my comfort zone. I'm talking way out of my comfort zone. I was listening to an NPR podcast called Code Switch, and this particular episode was called Black History. It was about black historical romance. Now, I don't usually read romance. In fact, I can't think of a romance book I've ever read. But I am really interested in historical fiction. So I looked through their suggested list of books, and I picked the one that looked like it had the least steamy picture, the cover that I would feel the least embarrassed checking out of the library. And I ended up checking out this book called An Extraordinary Union by Alyssa Cole, which, if I'm totally honest, I was still a bit embarrassed checking this out of the library. This book tells the story of a freed black woman in the North who goes undercover during the Civil War in the South and pretends to be a slave. Can you imagine doing that? And along the way of helping the North win the war, she falls in love. Yeah, the book is really steamy. But it also tells the story and perspective of the Civil War and the emotional landscape in a way that I had never read about before. It helped me not just understand the stats of the Civil War or the details on the page, but the emotional train of what it was like to be a black person during the Civil War, trying to also be a human being who falls in love. There are some ways that we have failed to tell stories from our history that have not only not built bridges, they've widened the emotional chasm between races. Take, for example, a story that I didn't even know about until the last year or so of the Tulsa Massacre of 1921. White residents looted and burned 35 blocks of what was considered Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They destroyed libraries, they destroyed schools and businesses and banks and churches as well. 35 blocks. White people used airplanes to drop bombs on black people and to shoot them from the air. Between 100 and 300 black people is estimated died in that massacre, and 1,200 houses were burned. An entire economic center was destroyed. 10,000 black people were left homeless. And to add insult to injury, 6,000 black people were arrested by the National Guard and taken to the local stadium. Now here's what should knock you off your seat. Not one white person was ever arrested. Not one white person. It's easy at this point, if you're white, to start feeling like this is an exercise of shaming or an exercise of making you feel guilty, but that's not what this is about. Before I got married, I asked my dad to tell me the story of his life, and particularly how he ended up having an affair that ended my parents' marriage. My desire to know that story and to know that history was not about making my dad feel guilty. It was not about shaming him or my family. It was motivated out of love for understanding the context of my family's history, and also so that I could stop the cycle in my own life and my future marriage as well. This is ultimately a quest of truth, and those of us who are followers of Jesus should value truth. In fact, Jesus says it this way: you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And then Jesus prays this prayer for us, this long prayer in John chapter 17. He prays, make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth. As we white people hear these stories from our past and also our present, they should elicit in us an emotional response of empathy, a lament, a sorrow for what has happened and continues to happen. Or as Latasha says, to lament means to express sorrow or regret. Our culture is uncomfortable with lament. We prefer stories of success, stories of winning, stories of triumph and being a hero. But how can we express lament or regret for something that maybe we weren't personally involved in, or that we didn't intentionally know we were doing? I think about a recent conversation I had with a dear friend. This friend asked me to get together to tell me about how a decision that I recently made had a significant negative impact on their life. In the midst of hearing this story, I realized that one, I had not intentionally caused this harm, but two, the decisions that I made had this impact, this negative impact in this person's life, significant negative impact. And as they were telling me that impact, I found myself beginning to weep with them. Yes, we can feel sorry for and we can lament things that we didn't intentionally intend to do harm or that we weren't personally responsible for. I mean, as far as I know, my family didn't own any slaves, but we can still express sorrow and regret. We can still empathize and lament. That's what bridge builders do. So let's talk about this question, either in the comment section or turn to the person next to you. When was a time that you responded with sorrow and regret to something that happened to somebody, whether you were the intentional cause or personally responsible or not? Let's talk about that. So Diane, I hope you don't think less of me for checking romance out of the library. It was really actually, I mean, I think more white people should probably read some black historical romance. It's good stuff.
I think it was funny that you picked a book out because of the picture. That's the part that got me.
The least embarrassing one for me to check out. Still a little embarrassing, but nonetheless, it was an important read for me. How about, was there ever a moment where you had an experience like I had with my friend, where you made a decision, it hurt somebody, but you didn't intend for it to?
I think I talked about an example that, and it wasn't for me, it was for my friend. I have a friend that's over 80, and she moved out of state, and she ended up being in a rehab. And at the rehab center, now, her whole life she has been respected and treated regal because of just who she is and the wonderful type of loving person she is. But in this facility, because she is a woman of color, they're being dismissive of her pain. And as people of color, we've had a relationship with the medical field where they feel that black people don't have pain.
Yeah.
So when she complains about that pain, they don't hear her. So right now, she's really, I lament for her because she calls me crying because she's suffering so much.
Wow.
And they told her, well, we didn't give it to you at this time, we'll come back later. Just wait, you should be all right. And so she feels herself disappearing.
Yeah.
And that makes me weep for her because she's in a system where she doesn't have anybody there because, you know, to fight for her.
Yeah.
And so therefore she's suffering in pain when they have the stuff that they could give her to help her. And I'm not there to fight for her, so that just makes me so sad.
I think that's really important piece to hear. We actually have several medical providers in our church here for them to hear, but all of us to hear this sort of history of medicine not always taking black pain seriously. And we saw that at the beginning of COVID with the higher mortality rate, I think, in black communities, and a lot of that being that sort of racial disparity of not taking seriously, you know, I'll just go home, you'll be okay. That happens more and more that we wouldn't, white people I don't even know are always even aware of that.
And just to throw in another one, I was in the military, and my son is over 30-something. And when I was pregnant with him, throwing up every day, the doctor told me, it was in my head. She said, you ain't pregnant, you just coming in here because you want attention. I said, I want an ultrasound, and I had to demand it from the military.
Wow.
And when I demanded it, she go, oh, I'm so sorry, you're 3 months pregnant. I said, really? But she tried to make me look crazy, like I didn't know my body.
Yeah.
So it happens all the time.
I think those are really important, and especially if you're a white person, it's a little easy sometimes you hear stories like that to get defensive and try to say, oh, well, maybe they meant this or maybe they meant that, and discount your experience there. Thank you for sharing that. That's really deep. I don't know, have you guys, Tori or Mila, had an experience like this you want to share? You're looking at each other like, okay, which one do we go first?
No, I mean, so I think a lot of times with relationships, that can happen when there's not communication. Because a lot of the times we feel like since our intentions are one way, that's how it's perceived. And so I feel like probably I've been on both sides of it multiple times in the past, where I had to sympathize and take the time to understand what somebody was feeling, but also times as well where I felt like somebody's intentions didn't align with their actions, and it's a similar conversation. So.
This is really just like healthy relationships, right? Like you got to sit down. If you hurt somebody, you didn't intend to, you got to listen. And then, well, next week we're talking about what happened, or the next couple weeks we're talking about what happens next after that. But today we're at the listening, like empathizing.
After the bridge is built.
Yeah. Well, hey, we got one more piece here of this message, so let's get back to that and see if I connect this bridge to the other side. We're having some hard conversations today, aren't we? And I bet if you're like me, you have a question that's been forming in your mind. Can we be guilty for things we haven't personally done? When I think about that question, my mind immediately goes to the Christian doctrine of original sin. This is a foundational doctrine, a foundational belief for those of us who consider ourselves followers of Jesus. The idea of original sin is that we are all in a state of guilt. We are all in a state of bondage. We are all in a state of disease. And that state is called original sin. Paul talks about it this way. He says, Adam's one sin brings condemnation for everyone. Because one person disobeyed God, many became sinners. You weren't the one who took the apple in the Garden of Eden from the forbidden tree. You aren't the one who ate the fruit and disobeyed God's commandment. But Paul thinks that you're still guilty because of Adam and Eve's choice. Because of their choice, you and I have incurred their guilt. And we continue to participate in their guilt. We continue to participate still in the same disobedience, the same brokenness, the same disease, the same guilt that they participated in at the very beginning of humanity. Now, we participate in this guilt in ways that are sometimes very intentional and very obvious, but most of the time we participate in ways that are very unintentional and very subtle. Now, if you were paying attention, you would have noticed that I left some parts of Paul's chapter 5 out. Let's go back and fill in those blanks. Adam's one sin brings condemnation for everyone, but Christ's one act of righteousness brings a right relationship with God and new life for everyone. In the same way that you incurred the guilt of one person's behavior, one person's act of disobedience, in Jesus, you incurred the righteousness of Jesus' one act of faithfulness. Or as Paul goes on, because one person disobeyed God, many became sinners, but because one other person obeyed God, many will be made righteous. I am grateful that the Son of God, Jesus Christ, was willing to build a bridge from God to humanity. In fact, you might say that in Jesus, God built a bridge of emotional empathy with humanity. In the same way that Jesus builds a bridge between God and humanity, those of us who follow Jesus are called to build bridges between each other, to stop doing the things that continue to cause harm, whether intentional or unintentional, and to build those bridges of emotional empathy, of emotional connection between different groups of people. Latasha tells one story of an emotional bridge being built that shows that it's never too late to build those bridges. 80 years later, after the Tulsa massacre, our government and the state of Oklahoma finally admitted that it happened. 90 years later, the police chief of Tulsa, Oklahoma, Chuck Jordan, built an emotional bridge of lament when he said this: "I cannot apologize for the actions and inaction and dereliction that those individual officers and their chief exhibited during that dark time. But as your chief today, I can apologize for our police department." Now, it seems a little bit like he's lamenting and he's sorrowful, but he's dodging a bit of responsibility. But he goes on, "I am sorry and distressed that the Tulsa Police Department did not protect citizens during those tragic days of 1921. Was Chuck Jordan's lament perfect? That's debatable. But was it a step towards building a bridge of lament with the people who had been harmed? Yes, it was. At least it was for Latasha and probably many other black people. The work of racial reconciliation requires us to acknowledge the harm and to lament it. Are you willing to build a bridge with emotional connection and lament? If you are, say this with me: I am a bridge builder. Say it again. I am a bridge builder. One more time. I am a bridge builder. Now go and build bridges. Hey, let's make that commitment a couple more times. Say it with me. I am a bridge builder. I am a bridge builder. I am a bridge builder. All right, so now it's time to not just talk about it. Actually, we were doing this play, Letter from Birmingham Jail, with Hope Central Urban Arts. You see the stage here set up with Martin Luther King's jail over here, and the white clergy are over here, and they're talking back and forth, and it ends with this song, "Do It For Me." Don't just think or talk about it, do something about it. So go and don't just hear about building bridges, be a bridge builder this week. I think something that's really important about that is that we don't do it alone, we do it together. We build community so that we have the resources we need, emotional, physical, relational resources to build bridges. And we want to make sure that you know how you can connect with our community this week. And here's some ways Carol is going to tell you that you can do that.
We don't build bridges alone. That's exactly right. So you can connect deeper with this message and more by filling out the connection card at sycamorecreekchurch.org or scanning that QR code on your screen now. When you fill out the connection card for the first time, you receive a free book, A Resource for You. You'll Get Through This by Max Lucado, sent right to your door. Connect deeper, grow further, and serve more with a small group this semester at sycamorecreekchurch.org/small groups. With groups, more than 30 groups available on any day of the week, digital, in person, there is a group for you, and it's never been easier to connect and sign up. You just head to sycamorecreekchurch.org/small groups or scan that QR code and you can find the group that's right for you. Today, there are still spaces available for the Letter from Birmingham Jail Youth Theater production with here at Sycamore Creek in partnership with Hope Central Urban Arts, directed by Anna Maria Horn. We have had some feedback from last night's show that it was even more powerful than the adult production. So this is a free show that you do not want to miss. 2 shows today at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. online, or you can reserve that free ticket at sycamorecreekchurch.org/LBJ. So don't miss this opportunity to witness something amazing. The Reignite Marriage Retreat. You want to reignite your marriage with a virtual retreat, and I hear there's a gift card to a local restaurant, so if that's not incentive, like what is, right? You want to have a date with your spouse. You want to reignite with your marriage with Rebecca Fitton, a licensed professional counselor and partner here at Sycamore Creek. So register at sycamorecreekchurch.org/marriage retreat. Mark your calendar for February 4th and 5th, the month of romance, right, Tom? You know all about that. I didn't derail the announcements. Stop looking at me like that. But you can still connect more and give through our app. Just type in SCCMI on any mobile device. You can even listen to sermons you missed, including ones from this sermon series, so you can catch up on all the different ways to be the bridge that you may have missed. We're going to take it back. If you don't have any space on your phone like I don't, but you still want to give online, you can head to sycamorecreekchurch.org/give or scan that QR code now, and you'll have options there too. And so, Tom, you can take it back now and tell us all the things that our giving makes possible.
Thank you, Carola, for that little extra.
You're so welcome.
No. Real romance, just not fiction romance at the marriage retreat. Hey, the group link brochure, I mean, your giving is helping over 30 small groups happen. I just want to read some of these. There's a walking group that walks to the church every Sunday morning. There's a partnership, Chick Flicks, Lunch and a Movie, Intentional Father group that I'm leading, a 3 Simple Rules, Digital Coffee with Me, Experiencing God Study, Exploration of Poverty and Homelessness, Anxiety as Opportunity for Spiritual Growth, Intersectionality and Social Justice, Sharing Your Story, Reading the Sensible Shoes series, Pastor in a Pub, Advanced Spiritual Formation, Friday Night Dominoes, Men on an Island, The Shack. I mean, I haven't even gotten through all of them. Those are all the small groups that are happening this semester. There is something on some day of the week for you, whatever you are. So make sure you do that. Your giving helps make that happen. Also, last Sunday, we did tubing out at Birchfield Park. We paid for everybody to get in the park and go tubing. We had an awesome time. A bunch of teenagers joined us for that. But not only did we have teenagers going, I mean, actually the hill was like ice. So they were flying down that hill. But Bob and Elvia Trout joined us, and Bob is newly retired, and this is what he decided to do with his new retirement, is to go tubing with us. So thank you so much, Bob, for joining us out there on the hill. Also, we've been we make a challenge every year at Christmas to give away as much as you spend on Christmas, and we've been waiting to hear the total. Anybody curious what that total is?
Yes.
So last year we received just shy of $32,000. We give that all away over the next year. And I'll tell you what, with COVID, every year I keep expecting that number to go down. But this year we received just under $34,500. Wow. Now we support artists in the community. We support our education, our schools. We support local missions and ministries. We also do some global work with Nicaragua and feeding kids in Nicaragua with the partnership we've had for over 15 years. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your generosity. And here's the crazy thing is money continues to come in. It'll come in for another month or two. In fact, here's a check from my in-laws, my brother and sister-in-law, who this was our Christmas gift, me and Sarah from them. So that puts it over $500 right there, if I remember to put it in the offering bucket today. So thank you so much for your giving. Hey, we've been talking about building bridges today, and I think about what's your favorite bridge in the Lansing region or whatever area you live in. And while you're typing that in the comments section, Tori, you got one more piece for us.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about this piece.
Okay, so I'm going to take us out with the last song from Mila and I's most recent collaboration. It's called Risk. So the first line is, I reevaluate the risk and the route we taking, and I'm reminded that we blessed, we are not forsaken. So that's just saying, like, despite the challenges of pushing forward and doing things that haven't been done before, whatever happens, it's just understanding that we're blessed with the opportunity to make something happen and to continuously push for greater outcomes and have that positive perspective. So with that, I'll slide right into it. Yeah. This project is available on Bandcamp. If you follow me on Instagram at I am Gray, you can find all the information. I reevaluate the risk and the route we taking, and I'm reminded that we blessed, we are not forsaken. They victimize my culture, trying to tell us different. But all the souls we lost is why I'm so persistent. I got the world in my hands, but I'm stuck in this mitten. I used to try to talk to God, but now I only listen. Somehow, can't see a difference right now. I'm in my kitchen, got a studio house. I can't get rid of this couch. I took this dog out the streets, I can't get rid of her now. I'm attached, the thought of love, it keep bringing me back. But every time I take a risk, I be boosting my stats. Even if the reason I set out turned out to be a myth, I cast aside my doubts to take a step across the bridge. Operating out of fear, ain't no way to really live, you know. Ain't no telling where this bridge gon' go. So first take a step and then just see where it go. It took us home. Okay, so look, that's it for me. I want to say I really appreciate this opportunity coming here to Sycamore Creek. It's my first experience and probably one of my favorite experiences doing a production type experience like this. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. And yeah, enjoy the rest.
Thank you, Tori. Thank you. Thank you, God, for Tori. So we'll cut those different pieces out and put them on our YouTube page if you want to watch them again. Tori, remind people, you mentioned at the beginning there where they can connect with you.
Okay, yeah, my Instagram is I am Gray, IAMGRAY _. It's also my Twitter. Facebook is just Tori Gray, just my name.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Mila, we've had some people ask where they can pick up prints of your stuff. Where do they find you at?
So either on Facebook or Instagram as well. I think I sent Tiffany the link, but the prints are available on my website, which is mynamila.com. And just go under the Buy Art section, and the prints are there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Have you got a favorite bridge in the Lansing region?
I feel like I do really like the bridge that's downtown, you know, that goes over, is that Grand River there?
Yeah, the Grand River?
Yeah.
The one with the kind of funky like things over it, or is there?
Well, the one that's like right down by the Science Museum. Why can't I think of the name? Right
Oh yeah.
Impression 5.
Yeah, Impression 5. Yeah, that's a nice bridge. We got a bridge. This is a crazy bridge that was in China that we came across on TikTok. I was like, look at this thing. I don't know that I would walk across that bridge. And it's like the bottom part is made of glass.
It's cool to look at, but
It's super cool to look at.
I don't want to walk on it.
I wonder who's winning the infrastructure race here. Diane, you got a favorite bridge in Lansing?
Yes, I hope I say it right. The Breckenridge Bridge in Old Town.
Brinky Fish.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I love that bridge.
The fish,
when I'm walking down there, yes.
It's like a bridge for fish over the dam.
Yes, great save, Gretchen, thanks. I
You're
couldn't know the
welcome.
name.
I got you.
That's great, yeah. The River Trail Bridge over Sycamore Creek, just outside of Hawk Island, is probably my favorite. You got to be in the woods to find it, but it's a super cool one.
So you guys know the bridge that is right next to the zoo, like down on Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
I like that one because if there's a train going across it, my kids are like, the train is going on top of us.
Yeah.
They get like really excited, and it's a thing.
That's also a bridge that you can look up on YouTube and find trucks that didn't fit underneath it get
It's
stuck
true.
and crash into it.
It's happened so many times.
Yeah, that's a funny one. So, Carolee, you got a favorite bridge?
I do, but I can't really think of one in the Lansing region. I love the Riverwalk Trail. I love the parks. I think I like them all. Really, I can't think of a favorite.
All right, you're just a fan of bridges.
I'm just a
in
fan
general.
of bridges. Yeah.
Just a bridge fan.
Really big fan.
All right, well, that's a good fan to be in this series. Friends, we've been talking about building bridges of emotional connection through lament. Next week, we're going to take a look at confession and forgiveness, and then we wrap it up on the last week with what happens after confession and forgiveness. I mean, you know, there's steps of repair that need to take place, and we got our very own Jeremy Crackey in the room next week as our featured musician. He's going to be playing live.
Yes.
We haven't seen him. We haven't had him in here for a long time, so I'm super excited about that. So, friends, until next week, be curious, be creative, be compassionate, build bridges, and peace out.